All right, so you guys know I've been telling you all week we got Impact Wrestling Winter Warfare. It is coming here just south of me in Pembroke Pines, Charles F. Dodge City Center, Friday night and Saturday night. Ticketmaster.com, super affordable. All right, so you make sure you pick up your tickets. I will be there on Friday night. Bully Ray, Impact Wrestling superstar, who of course is one of the all-time greats. Bully, appreciate you joining us here. Is that wild that I introduced you like that as one of the all-time greats? Like, would you have ever imagined that when you first got into the business that I would be truthfully saying Bully Ray is one of the all-time greats?
Well, when I first got into the business, I wouldn't even know who you were. I barely know who you are right now, and you're lucky that I'm even on your show. We can agree to that, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. But yeah, starting out, as a kid, the singles wrestling thing, I never ever thought was going to happen. I never wanted to be a singles wrestler. I always wanted to be a tag wrestler. From the first day I remember seeing professional wrestling in New York growing up as a kid. It was, the Strongbows, Fuji and Saito, the Samoans, Afa and Sika, Gurria and Martel, all the great tag teams. And I always thought that four guys were a lot more entertaining than two. So I always knew that I wanted to become a part of a successful tag team. And me and Devon, very fortunate in our careers. I will never sit here and tell you that me and Devon are the greatest tag team of all time, because that honor goes to the Road Warriors. But I will tell you that me and Devon are definitively the most successful tag team in the history of professional wrestling. And then when the time came for me and Devon to go our separate ways, I reinvented myself, became Bully Ray, became a two-time Impact World Champion. And now I'm setting my sights on my third Impact World Championship. And Josh Alexander, the current champion, is in my way. And after these television tapings for Impact Wrestling in Pembroke Pines on this Friday and Saturday night, I plan on going to Atlanta, Georgia at the next big pay-per-view, Hard to Kill, and defeating Josh Alexander and becoming that three-time world champion.
Obviously, you're one of the stars at Impact Wrestling now. You're on Sirius XM, Busted Open, Fight Nation, almost every day of the week, where you guys discuss all the promotions. Are we in the golden age? As a pro wrestling fan myself, I mean, I've been a fan since I'm 6 years old. Are we in the golden age of pro wrestling right now, Bully?
I was just doing an interview before I came on this interview, and we were talking about terms like golden age and renaissance. What does that even mean? Can you explain to me what it even means?
I guess it means that there are just so many options out there. There's something for everyone. Whatever taste you may have in pro wrestling, there's so many great promotions, and the rosters are so large in each of them. It feels like there's something for everybody.
But there's always been something for everybody in pro wrestling. Tell me a time when there wasn't something for everybody. Now it's just more easily accessible.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're right.
There's always been tons of wrestling companies out there offering something different for everybody. But now with, social media, the internet, whatever it is, now we can just get it a lot easier. I don't think we're in a golden age. I don't think we're in a renaissance. I just think we're in a really good time for pro wrestling. But let's not kid each other, though. This is not the Attitude Era. This is not the days of WCW and the Nitro boom. This is not pro wrestling crossing over, all the way into the mainstream. The WWE does that a lot, with the Jake Pauls and the Logan Pauls. And I think AEW, is putting their, tipping their, toe in the water also lately. But I just think it's a good time for pro wrestling. I don't think it's a great time. I don't think it's nearly as big as some of the other eras. It's a very steady, great time for pro wrestling, but especially for pro wrestling fans, because like you said, everything is accessible.
I feel like everyone is pretty supportive of their colleagues, of their fellow wrestlers in whatever promotion that they're in these days. Was it like that 20, 25 years ago, especially during those WWF, WCW wars? Like, were you guys supportive of everyone, or were they the enemy?
Well, you mentioned like in ECW, everybody was extremely supportive of one another. We were a real wrestling revolution. We were the revolution. There will never be another ECW. That's why those three letters are chanted until this day. ECW changed professional wrestling like Napster changed how we listen to music, and that's just the way it is. And ECW guys would go to war for one another. In the Attitude Era, in the WWE locker room back in the day, we were making so much money that we didn't have any other choice but to love one another. I'm very lucky where any locker room that I was in, pretty much nobody screwed with me and Devon, and me and Devon didn't screw with anybody else. I've enjoyed a pleasant pleasant work environment in professional wrestling around the world. Hey, every once in a while, there's going to be a hiccup. You meet another person or a personality that you just don't gel with, but you still have to go out there and do business with them. But for the most part, most of those stories that you hear about the guys getting on each other come, from a little bit before my time.
I'm just to age myself so you understand where I'm coming from here. I'm 41 years old. I fell in love with pro wrestling when I was 6, leading up to WrestleMania 3 in the late 80s. And so growing up in my childhood, Bully, so we're talking late 80s, early 90s, it was not cool for the other kids to find out that I loved pro wrestling. Like, that was something that I kind of had to keep to myself, but it's not like that anymore. What do you think was the tipping point where pro wrestling kind of, is totally acceptable in the mainstream?
Well, now you sound like LaGreca, because he used to get beat up for admitting that he was a pro wrestler. I would imagine once the Attitude Era truly hit, I guess once, the Stone Colds of the world, or the D-Generation X's of the world, and the Goldbergs of the world, and the NWOs of the world, everything was so damn cool that it was cool to be a wrestling fan, especially when you had T-shirts out there, like any kind of Stone Cold T-shirt or a DX T-shirt, or especially the NWO T-shirt, T-shirts that are still so popular today, that were just cool crossover T-shirts. People wanted to be in on this whole pro wrestling thing. And I guess around that time, and if you go back a little further, I would really say once ECW hit, because ECW was this more, in your face, brash, cutting edge, against the grain kind of adult sports entertainment. And that made it cool also.
I love hearing whenever we're a sports show, but I got pro wrestlers on the show all the time, and I love having you guys tell my audience, who maybe does not understand the world of pro wrestling as much. I love having you describe just how wild and busy the travel schedule is for you guys. So at your height, which I would imagine was the WWF, WWE travel schedule, what was that? At the absolute peak of your busy travel schedule, what was a week like for Bully Ray, or I guess back then for Bubba Ray?
My peak travel, there was a 10-year period between, I'd say, 99 and 2010-ish, where I was on the road as much as 300 days a year, as little as maybe 250. Wow. So Attitude Era, 300 days a year, non-stop. So a week in the life is very simple. You left on a Friday morning, a very early flight to get to the first town. So you did a live event on Friday, you did a live event on Saturday, you did a live event on Sunday. Monday we did a live Raw, and then Tuesday we either did a live SmackDown or we taped SmackDown. And then you flew home on Wednesday, and you had half a day of Wednesday, to be home. And then you had Thursday. And in that amount of time, you have to see your family, your loved ones, do your laundry, repack, pay your bills, blah, 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 and then get back out on the road. It is an absolute grueling schedule. There are no seasons in pro wrestling. We're constantly humping the road. We're constantly out there. The travel is brutal. And you ask most wrestlers, it's the travel that takes the most out of you, not the actual wrestling.
Have there ever been actual conversations, Bully? Like you say, the programming, it's every single week, it's live, for most promotions, and there's no off season. Has there ever been discussions for maybe we should have an off season, and that'll help keep everyone healthy?
I don't know if there's ever been off. I don't think any one particular company would ever take an off season. The WWE is the leader in pro wrestling. I think if you ever saw the WWE take time away, other companies would look at that as an opportunity to get more eyes on their product. So the WWE is never going to allow their millions of fans to go seek something else out. So no, I don't think there will be any off seasons in pro wrestling.
What is the biggest difference in the pro wrestling world from when you got going in ECW to right now?
Respect of the industry. Unfortunately, I think a lot of the respect for pro wrestling has been eroded. I attribute that to wrestling schools. You know, people say that problems in business or in pro wrestling specifically, they all start at the top. I believe it starts at the bottom with pro wrestling schools. I believe that there are a plethora of wrestling schools out there owned and operated by people that should never be teaching this industry in any way, shape, or form. I think there are a small amount of quality wrestling schools run by guys that have been there, done that, got the t-shirt, and have the money in their bank account to back it up, who have been over and been to the dance. So I believe the erosion of the respect for the business is my biggest issue and the biggest change that I've seen. And I do take it upon myself when I'm in a locker room with younger talent. If I see something that I don't think is right or a lack of respect, I will pull somebody on the side and try to educate them on how to do it the right way.
So what's one of those mistakes that you see one of the young wrestlers who joins the locker room, it's his first week with you guys. Like, what is one of those mistakes that they make these days?
One of the easiest ones to make is not introducing yourself. Introducing yourself is 50% of the job. If you're a new wrestler in a locker room, you should always come up and introduce yourself. Hi, my name is so-and-so. Nice to meet you. That's 50% of the job. I'll tell you what, I've been doing this for close to 30 years now. And I recently wrestled on a small independent in Long Island. And I made sure that I went up and I said hello to all of the young guys and gals in the locker room, because that's their locker room. I'm the guest for the day. They should technically come up to me, but I went to them. That's just respect across the board. And that's the old school respect for the business that should be continued to be hammered home at the wrestling school level, but unfortunately is getting swept under the rug.
I love that. When people nowadays, they hear that I love pro wrestling or whatever, it's like, oh, don't you know that that's fake? Which I can't freaking stand when that's said. I watch, whatever TV show on HBO you love, Game of Thrones or what have you. That's scripted too. That's not real. All right, they're on dragons. That shit's not real. When you hear people say something like that, because you're old school, Bully, someone says wrestling's fake, what's your response?
I tell them it's like their wife's orgasm. Only she really knows.
Like, I love
that's actually my response, though.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. There's nothing fake about the physicality of pro wrestling. And I have invited many a person to my wrestling school, the Team 3D Academy in Danbury, Connecticut, and told them, if you think this is fake, I will invite you in my ring for one day and put you through a very basic entry level workout. And then you let me know how fake you think it is.
Yeah. Like, I love the clip. It's a very old clip. Of course, the great Rowdy Roddy Piper, when he was on Bill Maher's politically correct show, and he mentioned something to Piper about wrestling being fake. And Roddy got up on the edge of his seat. He goes, I bet you won't say that to my face again.
Yeah, and when it comes to Johnny Valentine said it once back in the day. I might not be able to make you think that pro wrestling is real, but I can make you believe that I'm real, and I'm as real as it gets. And I'm as real as it gets in the pro wrestling business. I'm so real that people don't know where it stops and ends with me, because I'm a big believer in that. If you are a pro wrestler, that you are a pro wrestler 24/7, if need to be, and that's just the way I go about it, and that's what has kept certain guys successful for a long time.
Bully, what's the best pro wrestling city?
I mean, it's you're going to get the same answers from guys. It's New York, Philadelphia, Chicago, and Tokyo.
Okay. All right. It's a major attraction. Yeah, go ahead.
If you want to guarantee, Chicago to me is the guarantee. Sometimes New York can be weird. Sometimes Philly can be weird. Chicago is always the guarantee.
I feel like Montreal is pretty great too.
I don't like French Canadians, so they can all shove it up their ass.
Bully Ray is going to be there this Friday and Saturday. Charles F. Dodge City Center, Pembroke Pines, Impact Winter Warfare. Ticketmaster.com. Tickets are super affordable. You want to go check the guys out. I'm very excited. I'm going on Friday night. Finally here, you could also catch Bully and his pals on Busted Open, SiriusXM, Fight Nation. I listen every single day. Did you ever think at one point in your career that you would be, I don't know, I don't know that I'd call you a member of the media, but like you kind of are. You do a wrestling show every day covering the world of pro wrestling. Like, did you ever figure that that'd be something that you also loved?
Radio was something that I've always been interested in. I have a bunch of friends in radio. And when me and LaGreca started talking about this about 6 years ago, we said, hey, let's take Busted Open to the next level. And it just clicked. Me and him have a very unique dynamic, a very on-air chemistry with one another. And I always, as much as I loved LaGreca and Mortman together, they were two wrestling fans talking about, pro wrestling. You could only go so far with that. I always thought you needed that expert opinion. I'm not calling myself an expert, but I've been around this block once or twice. I have the hardware to prove it. And I have the experience to prove it. I'm very lucky. I learned from the Vince McMahons of the world. I learned from the Paul Heymans of the world, and I learned from the Pat Pattersons of the world. And I was able to take that knowledge and apply it to become one half of the most successful, the most successful tag team of all time, a two-time, world champion with Impact, soon to be three-time world champion with Impact. And I'm pretty qualified. I'm like the Mona Lisa Vito of pro wrestling. Did I train to be a mechanic? No, but I got all the qualifications.
What a great reference, Bully. Excellent job. Again, this Friday and Saturday, Pembroke Pines, Ticketmaster.com, Impact Wrestling's Winter Warfare. This was great. I appreciate you, Bully. Continued success. You're one of the best, man.
Take care, man. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.